Hello, amazing human beings, and welcome back to Wildly Free Reflections with me, Ashley Looker. I'm just hyped. I am pumped today to talk to you about something that definitely has contributed to my awakening and feeling more alive and awake in my life. So, just before I dive in, I just want to set the scene because it feels very springish today. Yesterday, we had the pretty classic spring weather here in Washington state. It was like torrential downpour, just pouring down rain, a little bit windy, and then wait 5 minutes and the sun just came out. And so it was like that all day yesterday. And then today there's those big, beautiful, fluffy clouds everywhere, but mostly blue sky. And the birds were chirping. I get up really early in the morning. And the birds were chirping already this morning at 5 a.m. when I said goodbye to my husband. And they were just so alive. And I was like, ooh, I think it's starting to get lighter earlier. But 5 a.m. definitely feels like a little early because it's not getting light until about 6:15. But it just feels really inspiring right now. The energy of spring feels very inspiring, and I'm really seeing things starting to awaken. My wisteria, which is just right outside of my office window, there's little tiny buds on it. I was like, oh, did she survive through this winter? She did. Because she hadn't started blooming yet. But yeah, so little buds are starting to come out on the wisteria. On my walks with the dogs, I've been seeing like tons of like snowdrops and tulips and daffodils and all kinds of other plants that I don't know the names of, but it feels like we're kind of out of the darkness finally here in Washington state. So I'm looking out my window. The birds and the robins are very active. It's sunny, and I'm just feeling all of the alive energy today. So I hope that you are also leaning into this topic of awakening and inviting in more into your life that makes you feel alive. Last week, I think it was, we talked about what it means to awaken, and aliveness, I feel like, is definitely like synonymous with awakening. Um, I think we could use those two pretty interchangeably. So what are you doing in your life right now to help you feel more alive? That's what I want to know. How alive are you feeling these days? It's interesting because the world is so uncertain right now, and I've definitely had some moments of feeling really hopeless, right? Which is really the complete opposite of the season that we are in, which is all about hope, right? Things coming back alive from being in the ground and in the darkness for a really long time. So it's been feeling really like incongruent, this feeling of like hopelessness because of the state of the world and the administration. I've just been feeling so um really hopeless, honestly. That's how I've been feeling. So this month and next month, it feels like a gift to be giving myself, and hopefully to you as well, to be tapping a little bit more into the lightness that spring does have to offer. um so today I wanted to talk a little bit about a certain topic that has definitely helped me come alive in my life. And it was funny because I like pushed send or schedule on the first podcast here on Wildly Free Reflections. And then I was like, it was like the moment I sent it, I was like, oh, I should have added this. And that is the power of generosity. So when I first started to think about what I wanted to say here today, I started thinking like, what do awakening and generosity have in common? Like how does generosity lead to awakening? And then I was like, you know what? I think that's the wrong question to be asking. I think the question that we need to be asking ourselves is, how did you feel the last time you were generous with yourself or others? How did you feel the last time you were generous with yourself or others? Generosity has a quality to it that, and a magic, I guess I would say too, like a magic that brings people to life as the giver and also as the receiver. So I was reflecting back on this a few years ago. This actually might have been during COVID or like around that time. Of course, like so many other people, I was definitely feeling hopeless. I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what my little tiny contribution can do and what kind of impact I can have on the world right now. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go back to, what we were taught, I feel like in fifth grade, and do some random acts of kindness and just see if I can shift the energy for me and for other people from feeling hopeless, feeling negative, feeling like, the world is coming to an end, to a sense of hope and positivity and that there is light right around the corner. And so I did a little challenge with myself, and I cannot tell you how powerful this was as a shift for me. And what's really interesting is that, when you are intentionally generous or unintentionally generous, right? Like something just pops into your consciousness and you give somebody a compliment or you pay for the person behind you at the coffee stand or whatever the case may be, right? It brings you to life. It shifts, but you never know how it lands for the other people. You don't always know how it's going to land for another person, right? So let me give you an example. One of the things that I did, which was just super easy, is I paid somebody's toll behind me. We have to cross a bridge to get from Tacoma to Gig Harbor and vice versa, obviously. And I was like, oh, I'm going to pay for the person's toll behind me. And I did. And I was like looking in the rearview mirror and I was like trying to see, like, oh, how is this person going to react? Or, I wonder what this person thinks, or I wonder if they're grateful, or I wonder if they're, didn't really think anything of it. Like, kind of had this day of mystery of, I wonder who that was. And I wonder if that helped them out. And I wonder if they're grateful for it. But that's not necessarily the point of being generous, right? Oftentimes we are generous because we want to give without anything in return. And I think that is what brings people to life. And so I didn't expect anything in return, right? I mean, it would have been fun to kind of see how this person would have reacted. But that's not, like I said, that's not necessarily the point. A couple other things that I did, I would give people random compliments on the street. Of course, just, if something struck me about somebody, or if I liked somebody's hair or their nail polish or their lipstick or something of their clothing, I would recognize that and reflect that back to them. The other thing that I did was there's like a tiny, tiny, tiny little fire station that I feel like has been here forever. It's literally just 2 blocks down the street. You would maybe even get it mixed up with just like a normal house. But it's been here forever. And from the day that we moved in, I just felt like, we live in a house that's 125 years old. We don't have like the tooth and knob or whatever the heck it's called anymore. Like everything's obviously been like updated and upgraded. But I mean, she has some quirks. Let's just put it that way, right? And it has always just given me peace of mind to know that there is a fire station down the street if I ever needed any help for whatever reason. And so I took the fire people a note and some pastries one day, and it just felt really good to offer them my thanks and acknowledge the work that they do in the world, which is definitely, definitely not easy. and just to share with them the impact that they have. Like, we have never needed their services up to this point, but they're there for us and anybody else in this area who may need them. And what a relief that feels like for me. And it just felt so good to tell them that and to give them a little gift. They were very surprised. So I don't think that they get like little pastries and thanks very often, which, and when I walked home after giving them their little gifts, I just felt like I had a smile on my face the entire way home. Like, it just brought me to life, and it felt so good as the giver. And again, we always hope that it feels good to be on the receiving end and that person like receives that and is grateful for that, but that is not always the point. So I think that generosity definitely has an impact on our awakening and feeling alive in our lives. And I think that's why so many of us are really drawn to service, and to helping other people, because I feel like it's literally in our spiritual DNA to give and be generous with other people. The thing that I think we kind of suck at now, honestly, is being generous with ourselves. So Brene Brown has an acronym that she uses, BRAVING, for building trust in relationships. And the G in this acronym is generosity. And she defines that as making the generous assumption that you or somebody else is doing the best that they can with what they have. Now, tell me if that is not just like the practice right there, right? Because there has been a lot of times in my life when I'm like, what an inconsiderate you know what, and generosity has really swooped in at these moments, not every moment, that's for sure, but during some of these moments, and just been like, you know what? Like, give them the fucking benefit of the doubt. Like, just let it go. You don't know what that person's going through. They might be an asshole, as a matter of fact. But we do not know what they are going through. Can you make the generous assumption? Because that's going to have a positive impact on me and also on them. And as we know, that energy absolutely has a ripple effect out into the world. And, had I responded out of anger during these moments, like, that's not creating necessarily the ripple that I want to create in the world. Of course, we're imperfect and things don't always go as we had hoped. And you may also have regrets at times in your life when you're like, oh, I should not have reacted that way. But I wanted to throw that little nugget in here as well, as we're talking about generosity today, because I need that reminder. I need that reminder right now, in this world, because I can get really hooked into just thinking the worst. Let's just put it that way, right? The worst of people, the worst of people's intentions. And this is not to say like generosity is about putting the blinders on and not being safe and not being smart. But I think for many cases and many situations in our life, we can make the generous assumption that people are doing the best that we can. And the grief that we can save ourselves and each other in those moments by giving one another grace is part of what's going to help awaken this culture and this world. So I hope that you can be generous with yourself as well as others. And I really want you to take into consideration, maybe after you listen to this today, how can I be more gracious and generous toward myself as well? Because again, we may be really gracious with our partner or our kids or our bosses or our coworkers or other family members, but we often tend to be the hardest on ourselves. So make sure that as you are practicing generosity, that you also reflect that back onto yourself. and give yourself the generosity and the grace that you also deserve. Okay. So, generosity definitely has an impact on our awakening and on our aliveness. And I want to encourage you to do something generous for yourself or someone else this week, within the next few days, and just see how it feels. Recognize how it feels in your body, in your spirit, in your mind. Notice if it shifts anything for you. And here's something that's really interesting. People who suffer from depression, oftentimes one of the kind of sneakiest ways out of a depression or a funk or a shitty mood is to do something kind for somebody else. Because that is how powerful and magical generosity is. Remember that being of service and helping other people without the sacrifice of your own care, right, has an impact on the world. Okay, so make sure that, again, you are including yourself in on this. Okay, yeah. So, generosity for the win. Get out there this week, practice generosity toward yourself, toward others, and just recognize how it feels in your body. And I just encourage you to continue this practice, not only for the world, because the world needs it right now, but also for your mental and emotional and spiritual health. Okay. So let me know what you think and let me know what you're going to do this week to be generous toward yourself and others. All right, everyone. I will see you again really soon. Bye bye.